everybody, SONGOSHUAKU'S here, and welcome to a review for Dragon Ball Super Episode 125, with imposing presence, God of Destruction Toppo descends. And joining me today is my guest, TheLinuxVirus.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
All right, we are here to go ahead and let's get started in reviewing this episode. So basically, this episode starts off with Son Goku and Vegeta fighting. Basically, from the way this fight starts out, pretty much is Vegeta is getting angry because he feels like, Kakaroto, stop ordering me around! Because Goku and Vegeta just basically, they can't really do anything much. You get some cool spots where Vegeta breaks out the final flash and Goku puts Jiren in a full Nelson. And when the final flash hits Jiren, well, nearly hits Jiren, he uses his eyes, the stare, that imposing stare where he could just blow up stuff, and basically he ends up throwing Goku over and kicks him through about like 3 rocks, and Goku and Vegeta end up going into the same rock. Yeah, he kicks Goku through several rocks that goes into the same mountain as Vegeta, or I guess rocks. They're like mountain formations, whatever you want to call them. So
at this point, it's just rubble.
Rubble, right? So before we get to the next fight, this is how the episode starts up. Linux, what was your thoughts on this little I guess this little fight segment we had picking up from the last episode?
I think it's one of the first few times where we've actually seen Jiren kind of struggle when it comes to actually fighting in this tournament. I'm not going to say fight in the sands because obviously he had a problem with Goku from the jump. It was a minor problem, but still a problem nonetheless. And even when he fought Vegeta, it seems like he wasn't expecting Vegeta to do as well as he did. But there's been a clear distinction made that he's having trouble fighting Goku and Vegeta at the same time. They've made that known in this anime, and they visually make it known in little hints in this fight. And you mentioned the key point, the fact that Goku was able to literally put him in the full Nelson while Vegeta charged up the final flash, is key distinction. Like, how many times have you seen Jiren ever get caught off guard to the point where he's like, wait a minute, did I just get caught? I also have a theory about him later, but we'll discuss this.
Definitely.
I have a theory about Jiren. It was confirmed with Toppo, but we'll talk about this later.
Oh, yeah, we've got plenty of Toppo to talk about in this episode. All right, we'll be moving on to that fight. We have Lapis, 17 Junagano, whatever you prefer to call him, taking on Toppo, and they're exchanging blasts. And I felt this was kind of another one of those homages they like to do in Dragon Ball Super a lot, so it's very reminiscent of the Cell and Gohan final Kamehameha struggle. And remember like how Vegeta came in and attacked at the end, so why Toppo is struggling, you have Frieza coming in and he attacks Toppo from behind, and he's like, "Ho, impressive, Mr. Warrior of Justice. You certainly give it your all. It's quite commendable. As a token of respect to you." Then he blasts Toppo some more, and he goes like, "Why don't you hit me with that justice of yours? That is, if you can." And Toppo stands all the attack. He's just withstanding all this, and then Frieza gets all like, "This is boring without any retaliation. I suppose I'll finish this now. I'll be careful to not kill you." And boom, just shoots out an impressive blast that, you know, between 17 and Toppo's blast, it just goes huge explosion, and we look like Toppo's down, but of course, as Dragon Ball fans know, it will take much more than that to beat somebody. And Frieza basically goes like, My, impressive, Mr. Warrior of Justice, but you look quite pathetic now. All encounters like trash. Trash belongs in the trash bin. Weak justice belongs off the fighting stage. I'll make sure to gently knock you off. Huh? And then Toppo stands up and he's all like, "Justice is worthless now," and transforms into a Hakaishin. And this is massive. This is gonna set the tone for the remaining part. What was your thoughts on this whole fight segment? I thought it was Just wonderful classic Frieza. Just Frieza talking so much trash and being that little evil devil we've all loved him to be. But I kind of felt like if we had Jim Ross calling the action, he'd be like, business is about to pick up. Before we move on to the Hakai Shin, what was your thoughts on all this?
um, a couple thoughts. So let's start off. Let's backtrack just a little bit at how this entire scene gets set up. So 17, while he's 17 right now is just running out the clock.
Yeah, I remember they did show that.
Yeah, and he gets to a point where like because he remembers the advice Gohan gave him, where Gohan tells him do not get grabbed by Toppo. And so 17, being the wise android that he is like, I'm not going to fight him head on. You know, I'm going to play this like almost Ali style, or not Ali style, but Mayweather style. I'm going to dash in, dash out, jab, then, let him tire himself out or let him give me an opening.
Right. Strategy is the whole part of this tournament.
Yeah. And so while avoiding Toppo, 17 gets a glance at the clock and realizes, oh, we only have 6 minutes left. That's fine. And so how this blast exchange starts is that he literally just starts unloading onto Toppo, guys. And when he does, Toppo tells him, now Toppo is blocking this, and he's not getting damaged, but he can't move. And he tells 17 that, do you really think you're going to hurt me with such weak attacks? And 17 blatantly tells him, that's not the point. As long as you can't move, I just have to do this for 6 minutes. My energy supply is endless. I have you in checkmate. And Toppo realizes this like, wait a minute, what? He starts trying to struggle to get out, and he can't. This is when we first kind of get a glance at the Hakai energy of Toppo. Because there's a moment in the anime where Toppo's eyes flare red for a second, where he's looking for an opening within 17's attack, and he finds it. And this prompts us to Toppo getting out and he ends up blindsiding 17, which forces this beam clash. On the flip side, that's how we got to this point. So that's one instance in which we've seen Toppo show he's kind of on that god level status to be able to kind of find his way out of that situation. The second time is something interesting. Because after he's taunted by Frieza, after he's hit by the barrage, Toppo says, and you got to remember this, guys, because this is going to play into my theory later on down the line. If I'm hoping what happens in episode 126 happens, I have a theory about him and Jiren that, I can't wait for that episode, son, because I'm telling you, man, it's coming. But what ends up happening is Toppo says justice means nothing now. Guys, you got to remember, Toppo at his core of a character is a pride trooper. The one thing he lives for, specifically him and Dispo and even Jiren in general, all live for, is justice and to make sure that their universe is at peace. Toppo denies this and says justice is meaningless. And that's how he taps into his God of Destruction power. This gives us something that we've always gotten hints of when it comes to transformation in Dragon Ball, but it gives us a pretty important piece of information on what it takes to become a God of Destruction. Because, guys, you got to remember, Toppo's a candidate. He's not an official God of Destruction yet, but he taps into this power by getting rid of the very thing that makes him him.
Very well said. Definitely. That was one of the biggest things, too, when he just shows his willingness of how much this means, is that he's giving up who he is. And this, of course, plays a huge role into the next episode, but we'll get more of that when we do that review in the next one. And going into this as well, one of the biggest reasons I was so interested to see this episode is because we saw when Seadra used the Hakai, or it came up against Frieza, he took full control of it. So I was very interested to see how Frieza was going to deal with this when Toppo shot his Hakai at Frieza. And once again, Ryusei Nakaho, tremendous performance, and I hope we get to hear Chris Aries do this scene amazing justice as well. Continue to get better, Chris Aries. We're wishing the best for you. I mean, I loved it when he sent the blast. Like the way this line was done and the repetitiveness of it was very well. Just how it every time he repeats it, you can hear how tougher it's getting for Frieza when he's like, "Oh, I faced the Hakai before. Such a thing is meaningless against me. I said such a thing is meaningless against me. Such a thing is meaningless against me. Such a thing. Such a thing." Love that. The way it's just consumes Frieza. And I know, Linux, that took you back because the way this whole thing was shot was just like when Son Goku used the, we'll call it the Solar Genki Dama back in the Frieza saga. Just the way it took him out. And the explosion was so huge. Like just a big giant explosion turns the whole sky to purple and basically cracks the entire ring into pieces. Like, wow, now they're just like jumping on floating rocks. And something very interesting here is that Beerus explains that Toppo, you know, basically because he's so new this is like his, you know, he's still, as we would say in the WWE, he's still green, and learning the Hakai Shin. Beerus explains that his body is still getting used to it, so he basically, every time he unleashes a Hakai blast, his body has to take the time to sort of charge itself to unleash another one, which Lapis does a good job of taking advantage of. So before we get to the next segment of this, what was your thoughts on Frieza trying to control the Hakai blast?
I'm not gonna lie, I was actually expecting it. Because part of me knew the moment Toppo started forming that ball, in my head, I was like, Frieza's going to be dumb enough to challenge this. And he's going to think it's as weak as Cedra's. Like, guys, you got to remember.
He kept trying to say it. I think he was trying to verbally say it's meaningless, and it never turned out to be meaningless.
But so here's the funny part about this. You think by now Frieza would have learned his lesson in terms of assuming techniques are the equivalent to the user's power. Like, people who can use the same techniques have the same power level. You think by now, after Frieza, who, you know, assumed all Saiyans were weak and ended up getting bested by Goku, to think, oh, I could deal with Super Saiyan Blue. There's no way Vegeta would be able to deal with me. You'd think after he'd been put in this situation and lost so many different times, he'd be a little more wise to think that, you know what, the one I deflected may have been from a weaker god of destruction. Maybe I might want to try and gauge his strength beforehand. You know, he did it earlier in the tournament when he fought that one Yadrak. Remember when he was trying to figure out his instant transmission? You know what, he did it earlier in the tournament when he fought other villains. Why now, Frieza, do you fall back into your old habit when it matters the most?
That reminds me, that Yadrak, we never got any follow-up to that, and I was like, wait a minute, why is a Yadrak in the other universe? Oh, come on, Super, dropping the ball on certain things. Oh,
so, that's just the interesting part about it. Like, Frieza, especially, so, I'm more curious to the fact that he didn't realize there was something different about Toppo, and he was foolish enough to challenge it anyway. This also makes me wonder how strong was Sadira, because clearly what Toppo hit Frieza with was on an entirely different level.
Well, we did state that there is a being in another universe even stronger than a Hakaishin. And I think we established that was pretty much mostly Jiren, but apparently Toppo as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Caesar really wasn't ever built up to be anything special as a god of destruction, though.
But there are a couple of them that are like that, where I feel like as gods of destruction, the reason why Zeno looks at them as being inferior is due to the fact that a lot of them either A, are not doing their job properly, and destroying out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. If you read the character bios, this is a minor tangent, but guys, if you read the character bios and you look at kind of like the role of a god of destruction, officially it's the Kaioshin's job to create life, the god of destruction's responsibility to destroy anything that could throw off that balance, and the angel is more so like a guide for both, almost like a mentor. It's funny how, if you notice, all of the gods of destruction who's have been eliminated so far have all been kind of like really bad. They almost seem like side characters. Like legitimate, like Krillin level side, not even Krillin level, like Yamcha level side characters.
Oh, we gotta break out the Yamcha card.
Yeah, and I mean Zadira fits that perfectly.
The Yamcha of the Hakaishin.
Yeah, like
even Yamcha is going to have more screen time than he does.
Like as a god of destruction, he's pretty bad. But yeah, I just find it funny how much stronger Toppo was once he reached his infantile god of destruction state, to where he was just able to single-handedly prove he was stronger than Sadira in that one instance against Frieza.
Yeah, man, you know, you're not kidding. Not only that, man, you gotta give credit to Toppo's tremendous fat-burning skills. That man shedded them fat pounds off and was shredded. I was gonna mention in the last review that we did that when they showed the shot of Toppo with his back off, I was like, huh. Toppo's in a lot better shape than I thought he was, and then I see why. Like, wow! I don't know if you've seen the meme online. Someone made us like there's supplements out there, multiverses, fastest fat burning program. Take off the fat and have you shred it. Oh wow! Yeah, like it was incredible. Oh, it's hilarious. I was almost thinking of like, just imagine if I know obviously the weight isn't dependent upon if you are a Hakaishin or not. But look at that. Goku and Vegeta get skinny in their god forms, and this man gets shredded. That's just a joke, guys. Don't take it serious. I know, obviously, Champa would probably be shredded if that was the case of the gods. Oh, man. But hey, let's get on to one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this review. Probably the most talked about scene in this entire thing.
Let me start this. So, I already know what you're about to say. And as a fan of this character, this was hard to watch. This was really hard to watch. So guys,
hold on. Let me recap it first, and then I'll let you take it from here. This actually goes to your point. You think Frieza would learn? Frieza is in his normal form, and he has the audacity to come at Toppo when he just got owned in his golden form. He's going like, "Let's see how you deal with a planet-destroying blast." Really? You're talking about gods that have the ability to wipe out entire universes, and you think a weakened formed planet-destroying blast is going to work? Have you been knocked delusional, Frieza?
So let me point something out here. Mm-hmm. Once again, this proves my point. Even the way this scene is animated almost perfectly mirrors when he comes back from the spirit bomb on Namek.
Exactly. Yes, he did the panning shot from the feet on up to the and the way he's looking. I'm like, wow.
Even the same eye was closed
Yes.
when he got back.
I'm like, yeah, we old school Dragon Ball fans are gonna pick up on this.
But once again, oh my goodness, you would think Frieza. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and maybe to say he didn't realize he got knocked out of Golden. You know, I'm gonna say maybe he didn't realize he got knocked out of Golden. But
Then again,
yeah.
man, if we're going by Dragon Ball Super logic, this is the same final form weakened Frieza that blew up the planet and caused Vegeta Super Saiyan Blue for you who like the Funimation dub. I do too as well, but just so you know. He basically won the fight if it wasn't for Whis' little trick. So maybe he thought he could get away with it, which I know that ending, you more so, and no, I think we both can equal. I know I trolled you at the end of when we were in the theaters, I trolled you about it, but I assure you we both share the same pain for the ending of that movie. On how Vegeta was robbed.
Let's not do that. Let's not bring that up.
The episode.
Yeah.
Here, I'll go ahead and drop down the recap of this episode. So basically, Frieza, after that blast, of coursely, didn't do anything. You have, let's see where I stay here. You have Toppo comes in with a monstrous punch. We can't do blood anymore because of the way the standards in Japanese culture have changed compared to what they were for Dragon Ball Z. But just the amount of spit that came out and the sound from Frieza, and then after that he grabs Frieza by the head and jumps down several layers of rock and is crushing the guy. Picks him up. Frieza's body's just dangling. He is done, or so we thought. And then Toppo basically goes, "I could easily destroy you right here, but I be disqualified." And then he squeezes Frieza's head. Shout out to Ryusei Nako. The amount of pain he put that man in. It was loud like, I was cracking up. The face, the eye. In fact, people who are listening to this, I'm going to use Frieza's face as the thumbnail to this video. Oh my gosh. And then he drops Frieza to the ground, and Frieza's on the ground. And then he proceeds to say, "Trash belongs in the trash bin, was it?" Kicks Frieza to the background, and then I thought he threw a rock at him for good measure. And Frieza falls down 3 layers. But then we find out it was 17 who said, "That rock was meant for you." And at the end, the episode ends with 17 knowing he's screwed at this point, but he's gonna still try and fight. And Toppo ends saying, "You have my praise for surviving this far, but try as you will, it's pointless." And then the episode ends. My gosh, Linux, we have never, to take a words out of Chris Jericho, ever seen Frieza this humbled. Before I get to my thoughts, I'll let you go ahead and take it from here. I know you are a huge Frieza fan, and I know this was a hard one, as you said, to watch. Take it from here.
Oh man. Humble's not even the right word to describe.
He was humiliated. How many times have you heard that in Dragon Ball? Do you not realize my humiliation? Well, that was humiliating. Oh my god. The face, when he grabbed him, I just can't. When he grabbed him on the, when he grabbed him by the head. Man. Poof. Yeah, that was hard to watch. I knew this was gonna be bad off of the simple fact of Frieza was in normal form. So I already was expecting something bad because the blast you threw at Toppo didn't even move him when you were in Golden. You're in normal form and he's in God of Destruction mode. Frieza, you might have done goofed. And he did.
he threw. Okay, let's call a spade a spade. When he threw the blast, Topo stood there. He didn't even try to dodge it. It hit him and disappeared. You would have thought Frieza. I mean, even when his death beam got deflected by Goku, he was shook. You would have thought Frieza might have been like, yeah, something's wrong here. Instead, he continued in typical Frieza fashion to talk trash and ended up getting probably the worst gut check. I haven't seen a punch to the stomach in Dragon Ball Z that gruesome since 17 hit Piccolo when he jumped down to help.
I remember it. Yeah, Junagado and Piccolo, one of the most probably, I hear a lot of people feel underrated fights in all of Dragon Ball, but yeah, that's exactly what it reminded me of.
Yeah, like the moment Piccolo jumped down after 18 broke Vegeta's arm, and 17 punched him in the stomach.
Oh no, that was like he had his hand. It was like open hand, and he just like took his wrist and bent it, and bam.
Yeah,
right
it was just the back of his hand. Yeah, he just stretched his arm out.
Yeah, yeesh.
That was one of the worst punches I've seen in Dragon Ball. I think it still is to this day probably the worst like gut check in Dragon Ball until this, where literally everything up to Topo's, like, almost halfway past his elbow is completely in Frieza's torso. Like, I honestly think if Topo wasn't thinking about the rules, he would have put his arm through Frieza's chest. I'm honestly thinking that, guy. I'm not even exaggerating. If you haven't seen that episode, please go back and look at how far Frieza's torso was stretched back. And I'd even be willing to bet Topo was holding back when he hit him.
Dude, I would have chose that as a thumbnail for this video, but I couldn't get past the humiliation on Frieza's face.
Because he did to him... Okay, so it's ironic. We just mentioned the Yardrak early on. And basically, all through that battle, that's what Frieza did to him. He tortured him, he humiliated him, and then he ended up sending him off the edge of the tournament. Topo did the exact same thing. He shut Frieza up when he hit him in his stomach, and then on top of that, he literally grabbed him by his head, smashed him through God knows how many feet of rubble, and then when he was done, he didn't even give Frieza the chance to talk. He picks him up by his head, by his neck, and proceeds to start crushing it. And that's when the term or the phrase when he says, I could easily kill you now, but I would be disqualified from the tournament. That's what I mean. Like, if Topo did not have the rules, he had 3 instances where he could have killed Frieza. The first one was when he punched him in the stomach, because he probably would have put his arm through his chest. The second one would have been when he threw him through the rubble, because Topo honestly could have just destroyed his entire body with a blast. Third time is right here, when he literally has his entire head gripped in the palm of his hand like a basketball. Topo could have crushed his skull. And yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal because we know how capable of a fighter Frieza is. And this was humbling for anybody, not just the character, but anybody who's a fan of Frieza, because this is the first time in a long time we've really seen him outclassed and upstaged. You know, the last time we saw Frieza truly beat this bad was when he fought Vegeta after he got that cheap shot on Goku. And Vegeta definitely humbled Frieza in that fight, but it was nowhere near as brutal as this.
You know, that brings me to, as great as this was, this is what I wish Vegeta would have done in Resurrection after Frieza. This would have been epic. This would have been just satisfying to see Vegeta do this type of torture on Frieza. But I do like what you said, Linux, because the thing about it is when you look at this, and I thought this is very well written. So much props to Toriyama or the writers who basically had to fill in the gaps between his monologues. Frieza deserved all of this from a character standpoint. all the trash talking, all the torture. It was just brilliant for them to write it like this. And now, how ironic is it that he's being tortured? That's why I liked when he was like, trash belongs in the trash bin, was it? And he leaves that line back up against Frieza. So Frieza had every single bit of this coming towards him. So I thought this was very well done. It's exactly what it needed to be for Frieza. And yeah, Frieza was offered up as, what would they say in professional wrestling, he was pretty much the jobber to help get over Hakaishin Toppo. Just wow. But yeah, this episode, I mean, this is gonna go down as one of the I guess, worst beatdowns for a character to receive, one of the best beatdowns for us as the audience to view in all of Dragon Ball. Like, we're gonna put this up here with some of the most baddest beatdowns we've seen in Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah.
We've never seen Frieza done this way. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen the episode, check it out. Oh my gosh. I'm very interested to see how Toyotaro is going to handle this in the manga. Will he do it? You know what? It's going to probably be worser, because in the manga, you actually get all that cool blood and wounds that we got in the Dragon Ball Z anime. So I think Toyotaro's going to make this scene even more brutal. He's probably going to change all the spit saliva that came out with blood, and yeesh, it's going to be a brutal one to read and view, for sure. But with that said in mind, guys, that wraps up this review for Dragon Ball Super episode 125. Linux and I will be back with Dragon Ball Super episode 126 review. With that said in mind, Linux, do you have any plugs?
Definitely. Guys, if you enjoyed this, definitely feel free to give me a follow at my own YouTube channel, TheLinuxVirus. You can follow me on Twitter at TheLinuxVirus and Instagram at TheLinuxVirus.
And my plugs. So if you obviously are a fan of Dragon Ball, shonen manga, or anime adapted from shonen manga, make sure to check out my upcoming short film, Battle of Deception, as it's based on those types of genres. I currently have lots of videos such as the teaser trailer and the behind-the-scene interview videos right here on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified as soon as I release more content regarding Battle of Deception, Dragon Ball, and even WWE if you are a professional wrestling fan. And make sure to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, both at SONGOSHUAKU'S. All links will be in the description below, and we'll be back for more review/discussions for Dragon Ball Super episodes 126 and 127. Until then, take care.